Folks, we have major changes unfolding in the housing market that are sending major reverberations, particularly in the state of Florida, as Florida continues to lead the way. I blew the whistle on this about 3 months ago. I said, hey, everybody, look out because something crazy is happening and Florida is in the front row seat. And that is inventory burgeoning out of control. Now, Florida started to lead the entire nation in the fall of last year with major inventory sitting stagnant. And ultimately, as I was pointing out back then, there was a lot of pressure with interest rates. All of that led to buyers completely going into shock and backing out of the market and causing listings to sit.
Record high mortgage levels are starting to take their toll. The mortgage rate is at 14.75%.
Ask not what the Great Reset can do for you. Ask what you can do for the Great Reset.
Now, folks, Redfin has just dropped some new press releases that point to the markets that are having the biggest increase in inventory year over year. Big surprise, 4 out of 5 of the top 5 cities or metro areas that Redfin watched and that led the way with massive climbing inventory, you guessed it, right here in Florida. Folks, Jacksonville led the way with nearly 29% increase year over year. And folks, get this. Number 2 and number 3 were from the impervious southeast part of the state. Fort Lauderdale and Miami increasing on inventory. I know, wake back up. I know you just passed out because we all know Miami is ironclad, never going down. How in the world are they starting to see an uptick in inventory? But folks, Fort Lauderdale up 27%, Miami up 26% year over year, and Tampa just behind them ranked number 5 in all metro areas of the US with 20% increase of active inventory year over year. And yes, folks, I know if you own a house in Miami or if you're selling real estate there, this is not a crash call. This is not something to jump out the window about because 25% increase in Miami with such low running inventory really doesn't amount to much because you're really increasing 25% off of a small amount. But folks, trends mean everything. And this is pointing to the fact that buyers, even in the hottest marketplaces for whatever reason, are backing away from these houses and they're telling the seller, I'm out, you can sit on this thing. Now, folks, at the very same time, Rent Cafe, which tracks rental demand for cities across the US, where do people need rentals the most? Where are most people opting out of the buying side of the market and opting into the rental side of the market? You guessed it, that's happening all across Florida. Orlando was one of the top 3 marketplaces cited by Rent Cafe with people looking to rent. And the reason why is because $2,000 a month is way better than $1,200 or $1,300 a month more to buy the same property. And that's what people in Orlando are facing right now and all across the state of Florida. Now, you couple that with the fact that at the very same time in 2024, markets across Florida are now seeing one of the biggest years in 2024 unfolding, where we are about to see more apartments, more multifamily rental space coming available all across the state of Florida. And all of this inventory is going to be wooing would-be buyers away from purchasing those high-priced homes that they can barely afford. And in turn, such a glut of apartments arriving all at once will most likely drop rents even further, as there's been incremental dropping already that we've seen starting to arrive in Florida over the past 18 months. And folks, when entry buyers, people that are literally buying a first-time home in the Central Florida market, a standard bread and butter 3-2 house costing them $3,000 a month or $3,400 a month, they can rent the same property for $2,000 a month. And the fact, folks, that food is still super expensive. And people, the reality is everything is still super high. Service costs, we just saw the CPI index, we just saw inflation for services, food, things of that nature. It's sticky, it's not dropping, and they're trying to fight it, but it's not coming down. It's still breaking Americans. But folks, the relative choice is getting more and more glaring. The reason why demand for wanting to rent across Florida is peaking higher because it is gradually the growing easy choice, and that people are no longer choosing to buy because the unaffordability is super out of control. And ultimately, folks, that's why you're seeing Florida leading the nation with 25 and 30% more active inventory in the state of Florida versus a year ago. Now, folks, this is super problematic, particularly for states like ours, states like Texas, states throughout the Midwest. that are starting to see ballooning inventory because we're also seeing that applications for new borrowers is going way down. Redfin's most recent press release talking about January says that we had 18% less mortgage demand. Buyers are not going to get those applications taken care of. The same thing is now happening with the Mortgage Bankers Association. They do a weekly survey that I constantly report on where they go through about 90% of all buyers that are applying for loans. They come back to the market and they've been consistently saying that week after week, buyers aren't going for applications. The applications for demands is down. There are fewer buyers in the market now than even in 2023. And that's a concern, folks, because as you know, we just wrapped up 2023 and we had one of the lowest amount of sell-off in the resale market in nearly 30 years. You'll remember that selling around 4 million homes, which is what we sold US-wide, was a number so low, lower than the Great Financial Collapse, something we hadn't seen in the 90s, and even now our population count is 25% higher than when we wrote that number. Now, folks, you're looking at me saying, Jared, this isn't good news. You're saying the applications are down and buyers are backing out. Are anybody getting loans? Yeah. People are getting refinances at a higher pace. Why in the world do we have higher refinance applications going on now than a year ago? A year ago, interest rates were 1% cheaper than they were the same time last week by comparison. It doesn't make sense. Why would someone a year ago who could get a 30-year market rate at 6.25% be talking to a lender about a refinance today when the going rate's like 7.25% or 7.15, something in that range? So as you can see, when we're going into January, and we already came off of a tepid 2023 with very low sales volume, we're starting that year again. Only this time, we're starting with higher active inventory, higher months of supply sitting around available, not being sold, coupled with the fact that over the months ahead, there's going to be higher increasing amounts of multifamily apartment complexes promising massive savings versus the opportunity to own a home. And folks, none of this is a surprise because if you look back at Florida's history, going back to 2015, much of our state's real estate economy, our health has been largely driven by people relocating here. At NestShare, we list your home for just 3%, saving you $25,000 on the sale of your property. You can trust NestShare to sell your home right and pass the savings on to you. Visit nestshare.com before you list your next home, and don't let anybody you know sell before talking to us. The data is showing that less people are looking for relocation. The data additionally shows more people are facing possible layoffs if they don't move back out of the state of Florida, go where they came in order to keep their jobs. Data further shows that Florida has a massive amount of second home and vacant property, aka shadow inventory, that we could largely consider may get the axe if times get tough. Why do I care? Why am I telling you this? Well, listen, changes are coming. There's no doubt about it. This is not cause for concern. I don't want people to get overly wound up if you're already exposed to real estate. Yes, I know if you're in Miami, if you're in the Orlando market, we still have very low inventory. We have record low inventory, much more in line with the rest of the country, whereas many other markets, maybe like Tampa, Jacksonville, the Airbnb market, the Southwest Edge against the Gulf Coast, many of those areas are experiencing very different things. Like I said, many of us in central or in the southeast part of the state. So everything is different, but it is important to watch what's going on in your area. Watch what's going on with the amount of active supply in your price bracket. Is there a lot more coming on the market? Is there a bunch of it sitting unsold? And again, Orlando is a hot market, but I see a lot of listings in the 800K plus range that are starting to get really aged, and the owners have motivated seller in the comments while their house is $75,000, $100,000 over what it should be listed for. And if you're looking to buy, you need to keep your wits about you. One of the biggest concerns I have as you start to look at late breaking foreclosure data is this. Foreclosure data is really a nothing burger announcement at this point. If you start seeing videos posted by folks on the internet saying, newest foreclosure stats, they're climbing, they're moving in a unison fashion. There is one segment of the market that is entirely dangerous and will be catastrophic if it keeps going, and that is the FHA market segment. And this is concerning, folks, because areas like Jacksonville, Central Florida, Tampa have a massive amount of FHA home buying going on right now, and they have been since the peak of the market in June 2022. Folks, FHA home buyers is the loan segment where buyers can get in with a 30-year fixed mortgage, putting very little skin in the game. You can get loans as low as 3.5% down, which is as close to 100% financing as you need in a market like we're in right now. I'm already seeing a lot of these loan types coming back to the market and people not having enough equity being forced to sell their home and already putting them back on as a short sale, meaning they're underwater, they have to sell, and they aren't making anything, and they're going to plead with the bank to lower the note amount in order for them to sell to get out. And if worst case, they do not approve that sale, you're going to end up with foreclosures from these loans. Now, folks, why the alarm on FHA? Well, the alarm is nearly 11% of FHA is now in default. Folks, that is one of the highest default amounts going back nearly 7 years, and it's a big number. And aside the fact that 1 out of 10 loans in that market segment is in trouble, you got to understand, folks, most of the people that would have used an FHA loan, they couldn't get in 2020, 2021, and early 2022. These people were iced out of the market when everybody else was putting big cash down payments or paying all cash, paying $100,000 over appraised value. All that buying iced out the FHA buyer. And remember, as soon as the marketplace peaked in June 2022, it hit price records nationwide and ultimately started to trickle down from there because interest rates started to rise. But yet, folks, most around the country, we've seen either flat year-over-year growth in price. If you look at 22 to 23, most places around the country, if they were lucky, gained about 5% in price appreciation. So if you move into a house and you buy it and you put 3% down, when you go to sell it, you're going to have 5 to 6% in closing costs. In many of these cases, these people kind of ran the house down a little bit more over a year, year and a half, maybe didn't put enough into it to keep and maintain its value. And what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of these loans going back on the market and a lot more short sales coming, particularly from the peak price of June 2022. You're going to have a lot of loan issues, in my estimation, not from the ballooning, not from the time of when we went from 2020 and ran prices up 75%. It's the time after that. It's the season where the people that didn't have a pot to piss in, they had very little savings, those people finally saw a runway where they could get in and buy some little junky box house for $350,000 that in 2020, just 2.5 years prior, sold for like $185,000. Then they wrap it in an FHA loan. Now we're going into the market that I just described, where eventually new FHA buyers aren't going to keep rolling in the market and pushing up these crappy houses that are severely overpriced. Mark it down, because these people, by the way, that are putting 3.5% down to buy, a lot of this buying pool that's come since 2022, they do not have deep financial resources, and it's sad. These are the buyers that when they came in to purchase, all they fixated was like, I barely make this payment. I'm going to scrape and get it all together. And that end of the market had so much juice left over with its intensity to buy because they got blocked for 2.5 years with all these cash buyers that when they finally got in, they just did it blindly. And folks, what's coming is not going to be good because recession indicators are still good. We're still running into some likelihood of issues coming from higher unemployment, which leads to higher defaults. Watch what's coming, folks. If you know great indicators or research companies that handle bankruptcy research, can kind of give us an idea of the trends coming from that. You got to know we have record high amounts on credit cards, credit card debts like straight vertical. That is a sign of the public's health literally getting by on borrowed time. Couple that with auto delinquencies and the rest, and we are going to have an interesting 2024 on our hands. But listen to this. Don't fear, don't fret. If you're in the Orlando market, if you're in the Central Florida market, this marketplace is still very tight. If you are looking to buy here, it is still under $400,000 or $500,000. It is still somewhat a seller's market. $600,000 and above is a different ball game, and it's changing in real time. But the most affordable areas of Florida are still a push to get in. Same thing could be said of the Southeast, but there are buying opportunities across the state of Florida. But look out for yourself. Make sure it's a long-term plan. Make sure you have good savings and make sure you're doing the right thing for yourself. The cost of selling a home is shifting in real time as lawsuits across the country suppress what real estate agents can charge. Forget paying 5 and 6% to sell your home. List your home for just 3%. If you're in the Central Florida area looking to sell a home soon, visit nestshare.com and don't let anybody you know who's in Central Florida looking to sell pay more than 3% when they sell. Have me and my team craft a full service, first-class approach to the listing of your home, all for just 3% total. Check out nestshare.com, and thanks for watching.